Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. I hope you're all doing so well. Welcome back to another true crime and makeup episode. Just before I tell you what we're covering today, I just want to say I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for missing Sunday's upload. I have just not been myself. Like, I was feeling unwell, but mentally I've been struggling a little bit. Nothing to do with YouTube or the cases that I'm covering. I've just been in a bit of a sad place. I think we all get like that sometimes. I am sorry for missing that upload. Anyway, enough rambling from me. So today we are covering the case of Alyssa Bustamante, who is just evil beyond words. That is the only thing I can say. She brutally murdered a 9-year-old girl. And this 9-year-old girl, Elizabeth Olten, was someone who trusted Alyssa. She thought Alyssa was a friend, and she wasn't. Alyssa Bustamante, on the outside looking in, she seemed like a somewhat normal teenager. She was quite rebellious, but a lot of teenagers are. Her friends described her as amazing and sweet and someone who was loved by everyone. But underneath all that, the real Alyssa had these deep and dark fantasies that we couldn't even imagine. They would not even be able to fathom the monster that was lurking beneath the surface until October the 21st of 2009, where she would brutally take the life of 9-year-old Elizabeth Olten. Before we get into it, please make sure you are subscribed, notification bell on. I post 2 times per week, Wednesdays and Sundays without fail. Apart from that Sunday there, but like I'm hoping that doesn't count because I was unwell. But any other time, I'm here for you. Yeah. But without any further rambling or any further ado, let's get into the case of Alyssa Bustamante. I honestly just have to say, like, before we get into this, first of all, Egghead is back because my hair is so greasy. It's not been washed in a week. It's cases like the one we're covering today that really just steam my clams to another degree, because why is it that when young people commit some of the worst, horrific, murderous acts in the world that we could ever imagine, people always try and defend them because of their age? And I'm not being funny. If you can commit an adult crime, you should face adult time. Get that on, what's it called? Like a plank. No, not a plank. A plaque. Get that on a plaque, because that's so true. Like, I'm just so sick and tired of hearing like, oh, but they were only 14. Oh, they were only 15. Don't care. I don't care. If you can commit the crime, you can do the time. So Alyssa Deline Bustamante, she was born on January the 28th of 1994, and she was born in Cole, Missouri. And in 2002, Alyssa's grandparents, they decided to take legal custody of Alyssa and her 3 siblings due to the instability that Alyssa and her siblings were facing in their home life. It was a really, really tough environment that they were being brought up in. So, for example, Alyssa's mother, Michelle Bustamante, she had a long history of drug addiction and alcohol abuse that had led to multiple criminal charges and also jail time. And if anyone out there has had a family member that has struggled with addiction, then you know the toll that it takes, not just on that person, but the family as a whole. And also when there's children involved, that just adds a completely different spanner in the works. It can be such a horrific environment, and it's certainly not a stable one to raise a child. And of course, because of her drug addiction and her alcohol addiction, she was deemed to be an unfit parent who could not care for her children in the way that they needed. Now, her father, Cesar Bustamante, he was currently serving time in prison for assault charges as well. I couldn't really get details on the assault that he committed, but all I know is that he was serving time at the time when the grandparents took legal custody. And like the reason that Alyssa's grandparents stepped up is they believed that they could offer her a supportive, loving, caring environment, a stable environment, and that they could have a good life. And that was their aim. They wanted Alyssa and her siblings to be raised in a loving environment so they could make the most of their childhood. So Alyssa's grandparents, they have legal custody of her and her siblings, and the grandparents decide, like, these kids need a fresh start, so we're going to move them to a more rural area. So Alyssa and her 3 siblings, they moved to this rural ranch style kind of area in St. Martin's of Missouri. But listen, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that Alyssa had a troubled childhood, okay? Of course, she absolutely did. The things that she's witnessed and been through, no child should have to see or go through. But her grandparents, when they took Alyssa and her 3 siblings in, they did everything in their power to provide a stable, loving and supportive environment to every single one of them. And by all appearances, Alyssa seemed to be pretty normal as a child, right? Fair enough, she was a bit rebellious, but I'm sure we can all relate to being a bit rebellious at some point, especially in the teenage years. Sorry, mum and dad. But like, there was nothing that alarming to start off with for Alyssa. I mean, at school, she was excelling academically, doing amazing. She was an A and B student. She was known for writing poetry and always being with her friends and making them laugh until they cried. She was also quite a dedicated member of her church. She would attend the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and she was a really active member. She would participate in loads of the youth activities that the church had to offer. Again, like, the girl seems stable, she seems normal, she seems to have stuff together as much as she can at this age. Now, it would be in Alyssa's early teen years where her dark side, and believe me, she has a dark side, her dark side would really start to emerge, as well as her mental health struggles. And again, there is no denying that she really did struggle with her mental health, but nothing will ever excuse the crimes that this girl committed. Devastatingly, in 2007, Alyssa, she would try to kill herself. She tried to commit suicide, and this was something that she would attempt multiple times. So again, yes, okay, she is absolutely struggling in a way that no one should have to experience. And she would be committed to a hospital for 10 days. This was a psychiatric hospital. And while she was here, the staff were, you know, doing their best to try and stabilise her to a point where she could be released. But what can you really do in 10 days when it comes to mental health and someone that has tried to take their own life? So Alyssa, she would be put on antidepressants to try and treat her depression and her anxiety and just try and get everything under control a bit for her. While she was going through treatment, and even while she was on her antidepressants, she was still practising self-harm. I mean, she was frequently cutting herself, and not only would she cut herself, but she would want to show her friends all of her scars. Some friends had even said that they believed that Alyssa was enjoying the worry that she was causing to both her friends and her family. And her friends stated, I just want to make it clear, her friends stated, I'm not stating this, but her friends even stated that they felt like Alyssa was showing her scars to show off, and she seemed to be quite proud to be on antidepressants as well. Now, a friend had even said that it was very, very obvious that Alyssa was on antidepressants because she made no secret of it. Her friends would go over to her house with her. The first thing that Alyssa would say when they were in her bedroom is, oh wait, I have to take my medication for my depression and anxiety. They said that she said it like that. It was very much like wanting to announce it to the world. Let me just say right now, I am not saying that she's showing off. I am just simply stating what her friends are saying, what they said she acted like. I myself am on antidepressants. It's nothing to laugh about. It is no joke. It's no picnic. I would never say, I'm not trying to be offensive. Despite her struggles with her mental health, by all accounts, Alyssa seemed like she was a pretty normal kid. I mean, to people who knew her, she was kind, she was outgoing, she loved spending time with her friends, and most of the time, she was quite happy. But online, this is a whole different girl that we're dealing with. This girl, her fantasies go darker than dark. It's bad. Now, I think we see this in a lot of cases where they have access to the internet and they don't use it for any good reason, these people, okay? So Alyssa's access to the internet, that was just allowing her to delve even deeper into her deepest and darkest fantasies that she had. And even worse, it allowed her to openly express them to the world. So in particular, Alyssa, she loved a bit of Twitter, right? Known as X now. I don't have Twitter, right? It's never something that's really interested me, but Alyssa loved a wee tweet. She was always putting out tweets and she would love to express just how much she hated authority, and one of her tweets even said, "Bad decisions make great stories." And like honestly, this whole like bad decisions make great stories could just be seen as Alyssa trying to be a quirky, cool teenager. Like we've all been there. When I was a teenager, I loved to watch Skins. Effie Stoneham wanted to be her so bad, and I look at it now and I'm like, that is alarming. Why would you want to be like Effie Stoneham? But it's like you want to be cool as a teenager. At that point, Effie Stoneham was my jam, and like I would post things on Facebook being like, here for a good time, not a long time. And it's literally a Friday night, I'm in my bed drinking a Nesquik milkshake, minding my business, like, Anna, calm down. Like, we all did it as teenagers. And if you were raised watching Skins, I know you can relate. I know it. And whilst we, normal people who grow out of that phase, we move on and realise that that's not the way to go. However, it would show over time that Alyssa wasn't trying to be a rebellious, cool teen. She was just, in fact, very deeply disturbed. Now, Alyssa, she was a YouTuber back in the day. I mean, a really small YouTuber, like even smaller than me. But she had a YouTube channel and she would also post on MySpace. She had her hobbies listed as cutting and killing people. What can I tell you? I need to ask, right, because I felt like this was a fever dream. I knew that I had seen this video before. Do you remember years ago, there was a video that went like viral on the internet, and it was this young girl trying to get two boys to touch an electrified fence? That was Alyssa. That was Alyssa. She was trying to get her brothers to touch an electrified fence in the hopes that it would either severely injure them or kill them. And she was going to post it on YouTube. I mean, she did. But like, I knew I had seen that video, but I had no idea that it was Alyssa who was behind this. Now, I'm sure we can all sit here in complete agreement that the hobbies and interests of Alyssa Bustamante is beyond concerning. Deeply concerning, actually. But no one would know just how dark and terrifying this young girl actually was until October the 21st of 2009. Now, before I get into the horrific and monstrous acts that Alyssa committed, I do just want to take a moment to talk about the victim of today's case, and that is 9-year-old Elizabeth Olten, a beautiful little girl who would have her life stolen from her in the most horrific way. So Elizabeth Olten, she was born on December the 15th of 1999 in Jefferson City, Missouri, and she was a daughter of Patricia, also known as Patty Carwile. Now, her father was Dale Olten Sr., but I do believe that Patty and Dale, they must have split up at some point because there is reference to Elizabeth's stepfather as we get further into the case, but I couldn't really see anything regarding the split. But I believe it would have been an amicable split because they seemed to maintain a really healthy relationship. She was the youngest of 5 siblings, and all of her older siblings were said to have been so protective over her. Like, she was like the little precious one because she was so young, and they just felt it was their duty as the older siblings to look after her and care for her. Now, Elizabeth, she had a very, very good childhood. She had a really happy childhood, in fact. She came from such a loving and supportive family, and she enjoyed spending time with her family so much. Like, usually children, they all want to get out and play with their friends. Elizabeth was just so happy to be around her family. Now, Elizabeth, she loved animals, especially dogs. She was obsessed with dogs. She also liked to play dress up, which I can totally relate. I loved playing dress up when I was a child, so Me and Elizabeth, I think we would have been great friends. She also loved to bake cookies, she loved watching Hannah Montana, and she enjoyed listening to Taylor Swift. I was born in 1998, but I genuinely feel anyone born on or around this time, we all had the same childhood. Like, I swear. And for being 9 years old, she was popular. Like, she had quite a lot of friends. But tragically, this group of friends would involve Alyssa Bustamante and also her younger siblings. Now, bearing in mind, Alyssa is 15 years old and Elizabeth is only 9. And I'm not trying to say that's weird, like the age difference, because I know when you're in a neighbourhood and there's like children close by, you are going to make friends who are older and younger, because especially at Elizabeth's age, when she's 9 years old, she's not going to get to travel very far, so her friends will probably be the ones in the street. That just happened to include Alyssa, more so because Elizabeth was friends with Alyssa's younger sister Emma. Now, it was also really easy for Elizabeth to hang out with Alyssa and her siblings because they lived 4 doors down from each other, so it couldn't have been more perfect. And now, devastatingly, we will be talking about the evening of the 21st of October 2009, where 9-year-old Elizabeth would meet a very, very brutal end. So on that fateful evening, Alyssa would have her 6-year-old little sister Emma ring Elizabeth's doorbell and ask Elizabeth if she would come out to play. This was around 5 p.m. and it is getting close to dinner time, but Elizabeth, she's happy, her friend Emma is at the door for her, she really wants to go out and play. She's begging with her mum Patricia to allow her to go out and play for a little while, and Patricia, like many parents, caves in and she says that Elizabeth can go out and play with Emma for an hour, but there is the condition that she must be back by 6 o'clock. That's when it's going to start to get a bit darker. I mean, it is October, and is also when her dinner's going to be ready. And I do have to say as well, Patricia wouldn't have had any suspicions of young Emma coming to the door because it wasn't unusual or strange for Emma to call on Elizabeth because they were friends. So Elizabeth and Emma, they agree to the condition that Elizabeth will be home by 6 p.m. and off they went. And despite Elizabeth making this promise to her mum that she would be back by 6 p.m, Elizabeth would never make it home and her mother would never see her daughter alive again. Shortly after Elizabeth went out to play with Emma, she would be lured to the woods by Emma where she would meet Alyssa. Now, Alyssa would lure her deeper into the woods and she claimed that she was doing this because she had a surprise for Emma, and of course she didn't. And you know what makes me so furiously angry within this case? I mean, all of it does, but it's the fact that Elizabeth trusted. She trusted Emma, she trusted Alyssa, and of course she trusted Alyssa because Alyssa was older. It was someone who she thought would take care of her. So when they're luring her into the woods, she's not thinking anything of it. She's not scared, she's not worried. She doesn't feel like she's in danger because in her mind, she's with 2 friends. And she just had no idea the fate, the horrific fate that would lie ahead of her. Now, once they arrived at the location of this surprise, Alyssa would attack 9-year-old Elizabeth Olten. She started off by strangling Elizabeth before then proceeding to slit her throat and stab her repeatedly, 8 times to be specific, stabbed her to death. This 9-year-old little girl who thought she was just out to play with her friends. Now, after Alyssa had brutally murdered this beautiful little girl, she then proceeded to bury Elizabeth's body in a shallow grave in the woods that is nearby their home, by the way. Alyssa had actually dug this ahead of time, which is clear premeditation. This was not just something she did in the heat of the moment. This is something this evil little scumbag has been planning and thinking about for a long, long time. It's not heat of the moment, it's not spur of the moment, it's not a mental break or a snap. She has thought about this and planned it and then executed that plan. And I do not care that she is 15 in this case. I do not care. She's a monster, she's evil, and if I'm honest, she should have been given the death penalty. Now, of course, 6 p.m. comes and goes, and Elizabeth's mother, Patricia, is immediately worried when Elizabeth isn't home. Now, remember how I was saying those siblings of Elizabeth's, they felt it was their duty to protect her. Well, her 13-year-old brother, Anthony, he would go out immediately and search for Elizabeth. At 13, he is just a child himself, but still he feels it's his duty as her big brother to go out there and look for her. And chillingly, he would find Alyssa and Emma, and when he encountered Alyssa and Emma, he heard Alyssa whisper to Emma, "Don't tell anyone." We all know what they were talking about, but Anthony wouldn't at this point. Now, I will say it was more so when it got dark outside that the Olten family really started to worry about their precious little girl, and they thought that something sinister might have happened to her at this point. Something that we should know about Elizabeth is that she's terrified from the dark. She would never, ever, ever stay out in the dark because she's petrified. She would always be home before it got dark, and she would never stay out past 6, and she would always listen to what her mum tells her to do, and that was to be home by 6. And the thing that seemed to trouble Patricia the most was the fact that Elizabeth was no longer with Emma. So where did she go? Like, does Emma know where Elizabeth went? Did she go away with someone? Now, Elizabeth's mother, Patricia, she made the very quick decision to get in contact with the police, report her 9-year-old daughter missing, and amazingly, police, they got right on the case. They were as concerned as Patricia was about Elizabeth's safety. Now, they learned at the time of her disappearance, she had a cell phone on her, so immediately they went to get an emergency ping from AT&T, who was the cell phone provider, and this would give them an estimated location of the phone. Now, this trace that they did, it would show that the last ping of Elizabeth's phone would be in the woods that was nearby to Elizabeth's neighbourhood. Now, the Olten family at this point, they are out searching high and low for their daughter. They would be joined by hundreds of locals who just wanted to help find 9-year-old Elizabeth. Now, the FBI, they also arrived to assist on the search for 9-year-old Elizabeth. Now, because the FBI had turned up, many of the locals had believed that Elizabeth had possibly been abducted by a local sex offender or possibly by a predator who was passing through the town. However, the authorities, they would speak with 6-year-old Emma, who they believed was the last person to see Elizabeth before she disappeared. And when they had spoken with Emma, Emma had obviously revealed that her 15-year-old sister Alyssa was also with them at the time. Now, once the FBI had gathered this information from 6-year-old Emma, they very quickly started to put the pieces together of what had really happened to 9-year-old Elizabeth Olten. Now, the day after Elizabeth's disappearance, the FBI, they would question Alyssa Bustamante. Now, when they began to question Alyssa, they could tell right away something was off with this girl. Something evil was going on with this girl. So the FBI, they start off by questioning Alyssa on a shallow hole that they had found dug near her house. This was also near the woods. So this hole in particular was empty, but it was a shallow grave type of hole. And Alyssa responded and just said, "Oh, I just really enjoy digging holes. It's a real hobby, you know, holes, 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 can't get enough of them." And I just realised how that sounded. Oops. But she said that she would dig holes for fun. Now, Alyssa is acting all dodgy, all weird, right? And the FBI, they are not buying her story whatsoever. Thankfully, hallelujah, at least we have some good police work going on here. They are so sus of Alyssa that they decide to obtain a search warrant for her home. And with this search warrant, it would not be long before they discovered Alyssa's deepest and darkest secrets, and also what she did to Elizabeth. Now listen, Alyssa's bedroom on the whole was creepy. Weird vibes all around. She had really disturbing pictures, she had really disturbing pieces of writing that she had done by herself, but one of the nails in her coffin, that would be her social media accounts. You know, when she's listed her hobbies and interests as killing people. It's going to look suspicious. And that is where they would get a real peek behind the curtain, of just who Alyssa Bustamante was. Now, while she's got a nail in the coffin already, the final nail in the coffin, the nail that would send her down, would be her own diary. That's right. Yeah, she kept a journal and she was, recounting the events of the day. She happened to recount the events of October the 21st, 2009. Now, Alyssa, obviously thinking she was dead sneaky, she had tried to scribble out this entry in ink, but she didn't do a very good job and the police were still able to read it. I am going to read the horrific notes from her diary right now regarding the murder of a 9-year-old little girl. I just effing killed someone. I strangled them and slit their throat and stabbed them. Now they're dead. I don't know how I feel at the moment. It was amazing. As soon as you get over the, oh my god, I can't do this feeling, it's pretty enjoyable. I'm kinda nervous and shaky though right now. Okay, I gotta go to church now. Lol. How, I can never understand how these kind of monsters exist, how someone can get enjoyment in writing something like that and then saying that she's going to church now. Lol, LOL. Yeah, it's a laughing matter, hon. And it's the fact is she just thinks she's so slick when she's not. Honestly, let's see if she will be so slick when she's in hell getting pulled apart by demons, because that's where she's going. Elevator down to hell. And also, not to be like a bitch unreasonably, but for being an A and B student, she cannot spell. She spelled amazing with an H, like AHMAZING. And then when she wrote oh my god, there was no spaces. There was no spaces between the letters. It was oh my and then gawd, GAWD. It's not about her spelling right, but I'm just saying we need to slag her off. So at this point, the evidence against Alyssa is just piling up like a Jenga tower, right? It's not getting any better for her. And the pressure that she's feeling from the questioning by the FBI, she finally cracks and she would admit to the brutal murder of 9-year-old Elizabeth Olten. And just 2 days, this is all it took to find Elizabeth, just 2 days after her disappearance, Alyssa would lead the detectives, investigators, FBI to the shallow grave where the body of Elizabeth Olten had been buried. Now, this grave had been covered with leaves. She was trying to hide where Elizabeth had been buried. Ultimately, she did a really bad job. If they had come across that before, I'm sure they would have knew to look there. But Alyssa would be arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Now, of course, the news of the horrific murder of 9-year-old Elizabeth Olten, this completely shocked and destroyed the community. They could not believe that this innocent, precious 9-year-old girl had fallen victim to a teenager, a literal child, a teenager who was so evil and who Elizabeth had believed was her friend and who she had trusted. They were just devastated. I mean, who can you really trust then with your children if you can't even trust other children? Now, even Alyssa's own friends were completely blindsided by the horrific acts that she was capable of and that she had committed. And one of her friends had said that this just isn't her, like this really isn't the Alyssa that she knows. And she just couldn't believe that Alyssa had done this. Now, Alyssa Bustamante, she would admit in court that she did in fact murder Elizabeth Olten. She had admitted to strangling Elizabeth and then slitting her throat and then proceeding to stab her until she knew she was dead. She had then went on to admit that she did in fact bury Elizabeth's body in the shallow grave, and she did confirm that she had dug that grave a lot earlier and that the murder was planned. Now, because Alyssa was just 15 years old, her defence attorney was going to try and use this as a way to get leniency applied to her sentence. Thankfully, the judge had a brain and a heart for Elizabeth Olten and would not go lenient. She would be tried as an adult. Her defence had even tried to say that her troubled childhood was the catalyst for her murderous tendencies, and I honestly just think that that is a slap in the face to Alyssa's grandparents who have tried their bloody best to raise her and give her a good, stable home. What a slap in the face. like her troubled childhood, fair enough, it was difficult, it was hard, I am not disputing that, and she has definitely been through things that children shouldn't go through. But I know people who have been through the exact same sort of situation as Alyssa, and they're good people. They don't kill because they've had it rough. They actually make a better life for themselves. So yeah, no buying it, hun. And it is honestly cases like this where I'm like, how can these defence attorneys defend someone like that? I couldn't. And like, I know they say everyone deserves a fair trial. Do they really though? Everyone deserves a good defence. Do they really though? Like, I just don't agree. I say if someone commits a crime like this, we throw them in the court and allow them to try and defend themselves with no practice. But just a few weeks before Alyssa's trial was set to begin in 2012, Alyssa had ended up deciding that she was going to accept the plea deal for a lesser sentence. She would only be convicted of second-degree murder and armed criminal action. Now, by her taking this plea deal, it meant that she was able to avoid the death penalty. Of course. It always seems to work like this. It always seems to work in their favour. They get off somehow. Now, another part of this plea that just boils my blood was the fact that it would possibly give her the opportunity to be let out of prison after 30 years on parole. Now, of course, Elizabeth's mother, Patricia, she was absolutely horrified at the outcome of this trial, and she was not satisfied with the sentence that was given to Alyssa. Like, how could that sentence be justice for her baby girl? It just wasn't. Now, Patricia had stated the reason that the DA had made a plea was because they were fearful that Alyssa, if she was put in front of a jury, she might walk free like Casey Anthony. They're bringing Casey Anthony in it, and I hate that woman. Oh my god, I could rant about Casey Anthony. But she's so overly covered that, like, I don't really see a point. But if you wanted to see me cover Casey Anthony, please let me know and I will do it if you want to see it. But I totally get what Patricia's saying. Because of Alyssa's age when she committed the crime, I can understand Patricia being fearful that due to this, a jury would be like, oh, well, she was only 50 when she committed it. She didn't know any better. Shut up. Yeah, she did. She knew perfectly fine what she was doing. But yeah, Patricia believed that due to her age when she committed the crime, the jury might feel guilty for her and let her walk free. Patricia, she would give a statement during the trial. Patricia would give a statement during the trial and she would really let her feelings for Alyssa Bustamante be well known. She didn't hide how she felt at all. Patricia said the following in court: "I will just say that I hate her. I hate everything about her. What I hate most of all is what everyone says about her age. The only thing her age makes her is an evil monster. 8 times she stabbed my child, and in her own words, it was amazing and enjoyable. She threw her in a hole and covered her in dirt like she was nothing, but she was something to me." Now, Patricia said that her last memory of Elizabeth was of a happy little girl. I'm getting emotional. I've really tried to hold it together and I feel like I've done a good job until now. And it's just so sad because this happy little girl, she has been robbed of the opportunity to live a full, happy life and to spend more time with her family, which was the one thing in the world that she enjoyed most. Now, Elizabeth's own family have stated that the most important thing that we can do for Elizabeth now is keep her memory alive, keep talking about her as the precious little girl that she was, who loved dress up, who loved playing with her friends, who loved dogs, who was just so kind and loving at her young age. And the other important thing is to make sure that her killer remains behind bars. So in 2014, Alyssa Bustamante does what a lot of these freaks do. She gets herself a new lawyer and she contended that she wouldn't have taken the plea back in 2012 if she had been made aware of a pending US Supreme Court case that affected how the justice system would handle juveniles in first-degree murder cases. Now, thankfully, hallelujah, this judge was not a complete doughball and denied the lawyer's plea for a new sentence. Rightfully so. Now, Elizabeth's mother, she would sue this convicted monster for damages in a wrongful death suit in October of 2015. Now, 2 years later, she would settle for $5 million. And the original wrongful death suit did actually include Pathways Hospital that had been treating Alyssa's mental health. Now, Patricia had included the Pathways Hospital and also 2 of its employees, and they would be included as defendants because Patricia believed had the hospital and had the hospital employees been doing their job correctly at that point, if they had monitored Alyssa in the way that they should have, they would have seen the signs and symptoms of a future murderer. And, possibly they would have admitted her to a psychiatric hospital. Now, the judge, they did decide to throw out the Pathways lawsuit, but they did keep the Alyssa Bustamante one. And Alyssa Bustamante, she owes the Olten family $5 million plus 9% interest for each year until the debt is paid. Now, Alyssa Bustamante, she was denied early release in July of 2024, this year. Her next parole hearing will be set for 2029, and it's such a shame because Elizabeth's stepfather had spoken out and he had stated that these parole dates, when they come up, it is just another day of grieving and pain for the family. It's like all the hurt and pain is thrown back in that family's face every single time there is a hearing for this monster. And Elizabeth's stepfather also said that Bustamante had said in great detail how and why she had killed Elizabeth, and it included things that was not included in the trial. And it is just absolutely devastating for her family to have to hear these extra bits of detail that they weren't aware of before, when they are trying their best to keep moving forward in life without their daughter. They're being told these new and horrific details that they just shouldn't hear. Now, I'm sure you can tell that I am absolutely 1000% on the side of Elizabeth Olten's family. I do not believe for a second that Alyssa Bustamante should ever see the light of day ever again. And honestly, if I had had it my way, I would have sentenced her much more severely and death penalty. Friar. That's how I feel. I think she's a horrific evil monster. I don't think there's any rehabilitating someone like that. And the pain and devastation that she has caused so many people is just unforgivable on another level. But I would really like to know your thoughts, feelings and opinions down below. Please keep everything kind, respectful in the comments. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, but make sure you're respectful about it because a young girl lost her life. A family have been robbed of their daughter and been robbed of watching her grow up and watching her accomplish everything that she should have. We just need to remember it's real people, and please, please, please remember Elizabeth Olten for who she was. Amazing little girl with the kindest heart, the sweetest soul, who just loved her family and friends so much. But that is it for today's case. I really hope I was able to do this one justice because it really hit me and honestly kind of kept me up at night because my heart just bleeds and breaks for the family and for poor Elizabeth. I mean, 9 years old, like, how can someone do that to anyone? But a 9-year-old is unfathomable. If you do enjoy my content, please make sure that you are subscribed to my channel, notification bell on so you don't miss when I upload. Down in the description you will find everything you need, my social media handles, my email for any case suggestions, or you can leave them in the comments if you would prefer because they all get added to a huge list that I work through anyway. This case was one that was on the list. If you want details of anything used on my face today, any products or makeup brushes, which I will list down below for you guys, they will all be down below with a direct link in case there's anything you would like to purchase and treat yourself to. But that is it for today's video. Please, please, please be a good person, stay safe, look after each other, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!